The banquet hall of Westfield High's 50th reunion glows with nostalgia and excess. Chandeliers drip light onto polished oak tables, where alumni, now doctors, lawyers, CEOs, clink glasses and trade stories of their glory days. Laughter bounces off the walls, mingling with the clatter of silverware and the soft hum of a live jazz band. Amid this sea of tailored suits and glittering dresses, a man slips through the entrance, unnoticed, uninvited in their eyes. His name is James Harrow, a figure so unremarkable that the room barely registers his presence. He's in his late 60s, gaunt, with a face carved by time and hardship. His gray overcoat, frayed at the cuffs, hangs loosely over a faded flannel shirt and worn corduroys. His boots, scuffed and caked with mud, leave faint tracks on the pristine floor. A tattered duffel bag slumps over his shoulder, the kind you'd see in a bus station, not a gala. James moves quietly, his steps measured, his eyes scanning the crowd. They're all strangers now, these faces from a lifetime ago. He recognizes a few. Class presidents, prom kings, the ones who always had the spotlight. They're older, richer, their confidence polished by success. To them, James is a ghost, a nobody who shouldn't be here. He approaches a table, hoping for a seat, but a woman in a sequined dress glances up, her smile freezing. "Excuse me," she says, her voice sharp. "This is for invited guests." The man beside her, a silver-haired executive with a Rolex glinting, chuckles. "Lost your way, pal? The soup kitchen's down the street." The table erupts in laughter, their eyes raking over James's shabby clothes, his weathered face. He doesn't flinch, but his fingers tighten around the strap of his bag, just for a moment. He's used to this. James lives in a one-room apartment on the edge of town, scraping by on odd jobs and a meager pension. His days are quiet, his nights haunted by memories of jungles and gunfire he never shares. No one knows he once wore a uniform of honor, not flannel and defeat. No one knows the weight of the lives he saved, the sacrifices that cost him everything. To them, he's just a drifter, a failure who dared to crash their celebration. But as he turns to leave, a young waitress, barely out of her teens, catches his eye. She's carrying a tray, her face kind but tired. "Sir," she whispers, "there's a seat in the back if you need it." James smiles, faint but warm. "Thank you, miss. I won't be long." His voice is low, steady, with a trace of something commanding. She pauses, confused, then hurries off. It's a small moment, but it lingers. There's something about this man, something the others can't see. James finds a corner near the exit, his back to the wall, watching the room like a soldier scanning a battlefield. The alumni continue their revelry, oblivious to the man they've dismissed. But in his pocket, his fingers brush a small, worn dog tag, etched with a name and a unit number. He doesn't need their approval, their seats, their laughter. He came here for a reason, though he hasn't said it yet. The jazz band plays on, the chandeliers gleam, but a storm is brewing. They'll see James Harrow again, and they'll wish they'd looked closer. Because this isn't just a reunion. This is the night a forgotten man reclaims his place and shakes their world to its core. The banquet hall pulses with self-congratulation, the alumni basking in their achievements. At the front, a makeshift stage holds a microphone where the reunion's organizer, Claire Thornton, reigns. She's in her late 60s, impeccably dressed in a sapphire gown, her hair a perfect silver bob. Once the head cheerleader, now a real estate mogul, Claire commands the room with the ease of someone born to be admired. She's mid-speech, praising the class's legacy, million-dollar deals, charity boards, lives of triumph. The crowd applauds, their egos fed. But when her eyes land on James Harrow, lingering in the corner, her smile twists into a sneer. She sees his muddy boots, his tattered coat, and something in her snaps. "Ladies and gentlemen," Claire says, her voice cutting through the applause, "it seems we have an uninvited guest." Heads turn, and the room quiets, all eyes on James. He stands still, his face unreadable, but the air grows heavy. Claire steps closer to the microphone, her tone dripping with mockery. "James Harrow, is it? I remember you. Always skulking in the shadows, never amounting to much. What makes you think you belong here?" The crowd laughs, a cruel chorus. A man in a tuxedo, once the football captain, shouts, "Go back to your alley, old man." Another alum, a woman with diamond earrings, spills her wine deliberately, letting it drip onto the floor. "Clean it up, why don't you?" she taunts, and the laughter swells. James doesn't move. His eyes, gray and piercing, lock onto Claire's, and for a moment she falters, but she presses on. "This is a night for winners," she says, gesturing to the glittering crowd. "Not for whatever you are." She signals to two security guards, their black suits stark against the festive decor. They stride toward James, their faces blank but their intent clear. "Time to go," one mutters, grabbing his arm. The crowd watches, some recording on their phones, their giggles a soundtrack to his shame. No one defends him. No one questions Claire's cruelty. To them, James is nothing, a stain on their perfect night. But as the guards pull him toward the exit, something shifts. His shoulders square, and his eyes harden, cold as steel. He doesn't resist, but he doesn't cower either. There's a faint smile on his lips, barely there, and it sends a shiver through the waitress, watching from the sidelines. "He's not scared," she whispers. "Why isn't he scared?" The doors swing shut, and Claire resumes her speech, the incident dismissed as a minor amusement. The alumni raise their glasses, toasting their superiority. But outside, in the dimly lit hallway, James stands alone, his breathing steady. He reaches into his coat, fingers closing around that dog tag. The guards have left, assuming he'll slink away. They're wrong. He glances at the banquet hall doors, his smile widening just a fraction. The laughter inside is loud, but it's about to stop. Because James Harrow isn't just a drifter. He's a man who's carried burdens heavier than any of them could bear. And he's not leaving until they know it. The night is far from over, and the truth is coming like a freight train. The hallway is silent, the muffled sounds of the reunion seeping through the doors. James Harrow stands still, his duffel bag at his feet. He pulls out an old, cracked phone, its screen flickering as he dials a number. "It's time," he says, his voice low but firm. "Get it ready." On the other end, a woman responds, "Yes, sir. It's uploading now." The call ends, and James tucks the phone away, his movements deliberate. He straightens his coat, and for the first time, you notice the way he carries himself. Not like a broken man, but like someone who's walked through hell and come out whole. Inside the banquet hall, Claire is winding down her speech, basking in applause. But the mood shifts when the massive screen behind her, meant for a slideshow of old yearbook photos, flickers to life unprompted. A video begins to play, grainy at first, but unmistakable. It's footage from a war zone, jungles, gunfire, chaos. A young soldier, face streaked with dirt, carries a wounded comrade through a hail of bullets. The camera zooms in, and the crowd gasps. It's James Harrow, decades younger, his eyes fierce with determination. The footage cuts to a medal ceremony, where a general pins the Medal of Honor on James's chest. A narrator's voice booms. "Sergeant James Harrow, for unmatched valor, saved 12 men under enemy fire, risking his life without hesitation." The room freezes. Claire's smile vanishes, her hands trembling. The man in the tuxedo drops his glass, wine splashing across the floor. The woman with diamond earrings grips her chair, her face pale. James steps back into the hall, unnoticed at first, his presence like a gathering storm. The video shifts to a recent interview with a retired colonel, his voice choked with emotion. "James Harrow is the reason I'm alive," he says. "He gave up everything, his career, his future, to protect us, and he never asked for a thing." The screen flashes a headline. "Unsung hero lives in obscurity, ignored by those he saved." A murmur ripples through the crowd, and heads turn as James walks forward, his muddy boots steady on the polished floor. The waitress, tears in her eyes, steps aside, her tray forgotten. "Mr. Harrow," she whispers, her voice breaking. Claire stammers, This can't be right." But a man in a suit, the reunion's tech coordinator, rushes in, his face ashen. "Sir," he says to James, "we didn't know." "The video, it was sent to us, marked urgent." James nods, his voice calm but unyielding. "It's time they knew," he says. "Not for me, for the ones who didn't come home." The alumni who mocked him are silent, their faces a mix of shock and shame. Claire tries to speak, her voice shrill. "James, we didn't mean—" He cuts her off with a look, not cruel but final. "You didn't care to know," he says. "You saw what you wanted to see." The screen loops the footage, James's younger self staring into the camera, fearless. The crowd parts as he moves toward the stage, not to gloat, but to stand where he belongs. He's not just a veteran, he's a hero, a man who's earned his place 1,000 times over, and they're about to see what that means. The banquet hall is a mausoleum of stunned silence, the jazz band long quieted. James Harrow stands on the stage, where Claire Thornton stood moments ago. The screen behind him freezes on his Medal of Honor, its ribbon stark against his younger self's chest. Claire is slumped in a chair, her sapphire gown crumpled, her face buried in her hands. The alumni, once so proud, avoid James's gaze, their wealth and status meaningless now. The tech coordinator clears his throat, his voice shaky. "Mr. Harrow has requested to address the reunion," he says. "After the video, it's the least we can do." James steps to the microphone, his coat still frayed, his boots still muddy. The crowd waits, breathless. "I didn't come here for your pity," he says, his voice steady, resonating with quiet power. "I came to see what became of the people I grew up with. I saw your laughter, your judgment, but I also saw her." He nods towards the waitress, who's crying openly now. "She offered me a seat when you offered me shame. That's the difference between you and the world I fought for." The room is still, the weight of his words settling like ash. He pauses, his eyes sweeping the crowd. "I don't need your applause or your regret," he continues. "I need you to remember the ones who didn't make it back, the ones who gave everything so you could have this." He pulls the dog tag from his pocket, holding it up. "This belonged to my brother in arms. He deserved better than your mockery." The man in the tuxedo looks away, his face burning. The woman with diamond earrings chokes back a sob. The video, now viral online, is spreading beyond the hall, shared by thousands who see James for who he is. Claire tries to stand, her voice weak. "James, please, we're sorry." He shakes his head, not unkindly. "Sorry doesn't change what you did," he says, "but you can change what you do next." He steps down, leaving the stage empty, the screen still glowing with his past. The alumni are ushered out, their reunion in ruins. The video's reach grows. News outlets pick it up, veterans groups amplify it, and Claire's real estate empire faces a boycott as her cruelty trends. James doesn't watch the fallout. He's already gone, slipping into the night, his duffel bag over his shoulder. Days later, James sits in his small apartment, a letter from the waitress on his table. She started a fundraiser for veterans, inspired by him. He smiles, the same warm smile he gave her in the hall. The world is talking about James Harrow now, but he doesn't care for the spotlight. He's moved on, his mission complete. And to you, watching this story, let me say this. Never underestimate the quiet ones, the ones who carry their scars in silence, who fight without fanfare. They're the ones who change the world. Thank you for staying with us through James's journey. If you've ever been overlooked, remember, your truth will always find its voice. Subscribe for more stories like this, where the underdog rises and justice prevails. Until next time, honor the heroes among us.